So with Gemini 3, you can create amazing polished landing pages with just a few prompts. Something like this is totally possible now. We're talking about, clip animation, beam animation, we're talking about intro animation, and then, we have really beautiful effects, transitions, cards that are switching, and you can look at this one. This is so awesome. We have clip animation. It's extremely premium. We have the beam here, we have the flashlight, and we even have the border gradient that follows the mouse, which is so cool. This is great for testimonials. And then you can even tell Gemini to create beautiful animated Instagram slides just like that. I mean, how cool is it to consume content? And this is turning my tweet into Instagram slide, which typically takes so much time. But in this case, it's animated. And we have the prompt because, I talk a lot about prompts. It's really, really important for Gemini 3. And we also have this one, which allows you to do it vertically. So you can scroll vertically, page by page. You can use a button here, which is really cool. See this gorgeous button using Gemini 3 prompt, typography, loop, all the things that I'm going to show you today. And all of that stuff is adaptive, which is amazing. Again, I'm using Aura here, but you can use these prompts for AI Studio or Cursor or Lovable. It's entirely up to you. Now, you can see it's turning something on the iPad that is focusing on the Instagram slide format, which is 3x4, turning into a full screen for iPhone, which is really awesome. Now there's the community. These are creations by our users, and we just started to share them. As you can see, some of them use our templates like this one, which is really easy. Like I said, you can just remix, change the content, ask AI to do all the work for you. And of course, there's the crazy one, the creative one. So you can use a 3D model to do this. And one of my favorite ones is by a user. And I love this one because it's so simple. It even has a preloader. And you can see it has a mouse follow animation. It has, this header here that adapts to the colors and the dark mode and light mode. It has really cool scroll velocity. So what are we going to learn today? Well, I'm going to let the slides do the work for me because it does such a great job, right? We're going to learn about Gemini 3 motion. We're going to learn about prompting, and we're going to learn all of these techniques. So for example, here I'm just going to refresh because we need to see the animation when you scroll. And you can see here, we're going to learn about these beam animations. We're going to learn how to create this Instagram layout, which by the way, works really, really well for a portfolio. You can imagine, this is a landing page. This is, it's not just Instagram slide. It's essentially a landing page. And you can totally use this to showcase your portfolio, to showcase a feature or a year-end sort of like recap of what you did last month or last year. And then a lot of people ask me, what software do I use to share these beautiful animations of my designs that I create on Aura? Well, it's Screen Studio. And in fact, you can do a lot of the zooming. So when you have a UI like this, where you can just scroll and demo the interactions, you can use the screen recorder and create a beautiful format. And then you share it on social media. This really, really ups your game. And it creates so much engagement. So much so that I'm not supposed to share this, but I'm so happy to see the growth of Aura that I want to show you that people are really, really excited about Gemini 3. Is our top model right now, 84.4%, and we're spending $777 US in the past 24 hours alone. So just to give you an idea, this is like $250,000 that we're going to be spending if we do this every single day. So of course, this is exciting for one single reason, is that we can be sustainable as a tool, and we can help our customers, our users, our community create amazing landing pages that gets a lot of visibility, because animation to me is incredibly important. And there's a reason why companies spend millions of dollars on ads, on videos, and I believe that letting Gemini do a lot of the work for you, especially when it is interactive like this one. This, by the way, is by one of our customers, one of our users, and you can click on each element, each planet, and it goes and it follows the path, which is really awesome. Now, please note that I'm going to be using Aura for this tutorial. And the reason why I'm saying this is because some people feel that I'm promoting Aura, but at the same time, this is where I create all of these demos. This is where I put all of my energy into creating these prompts, coming up with all of these amazing sites that I can show you how to create it. Also, keeping in mind that everything that I'm showing you today can be done anywhere else as well. You don't have to use Aura, but I use Aura because obviously it's something that I'm really passionate about. And also, it's much faster to show you guys. It has all of these assets, the images, the components, the templates, the references, and also these beautiful Unicorn Studio backgrounds that are animated. I'm going to share that for free, and you can use them, you can remix them. And I think that kind of worked, so I'm gonna do more of that. Okay, let's dive in a little bit about inspiration, but also about business this time, because I think a lot of people, they want, to become successful. Of course, everyone wants to be successful, everyone wants to be sustainable, and there's inspiration everywhere. We've talked about Mobbin, we've talked about Dribble for design inspiration, put that HTML image to HTML and create your beautiful landing page. In this case, we're gonna be using inspiration that I feel very passionate about, which is Instagram slide. This is working really, really well for a lot of designers. And essentially, you have to study the formula. So for example, an Instagram slide, it's not very different from a website, except that it's just images that are static. So it's kind of like a pitch deck or something like that, but it's not interactive. So in this case, you have a cover, and then you have the steps, what I call, so in the case of, for many of us, for example, prompting, or designing in Figma or designing in Framer, then you would have these steps, and that's kind of like the tutorial is very engaging. And then at the end, you have the CTA. So this kind of sparked an idea that I wanted to use. So for example, I've been tweeting a lot about the techniques that I use for prompting and creating these beautiful designs using Aura. And then oftentimes, I share these prompts, and this was the perfect format. So I have all of these prompts for animation. Again, this is what I use for the slides, so I'm just gonna copy this. And then I'm gonna go to Aura or AI Studio, of course, but in this case, I'm gonna use Aura. And then I'm gonna use this very specific prompt that I wanted to try. So basically, turn this into 8 sections for Instagram slide. Each section is full width, so this is the layout part. It's gonna be centered. It's gonna be like a side section so that you can sort of scroll. So you kind of need to know a little bit about how websites work in terms of pagination. And then you kind of talk about the content. So you have one cover, 6 section explaining the steps, and then one CTA, which is call to action. And then, I want the numbers, and I want me as the author. Usually there's like by this person, and that makes it a little bit more memorable to a lot of people. And again, you can go into the prompt builder. I update this very often, especially for these preset prompts that I use all the time. And it has all of these prompts. So, one thing that I like to use is this one. So animate, fade in, slide in, blur in, and so on. This is through countless testing, right? And, it's really useful for anyone to learn about layout, animation, configuration, theming, all of these terms that if you're new to designing, which I suspect that many are because we are in the vibing sort of era where, not everyone has coded before, but they build amazingly successful SaaS products or services. And so understanding all of these technical terms, and this is kind of like a cheat sheet because instead of like spending so much time through trials and errors and making a ton of mistakes, I'm kind of showing you the blueprint for what I'm doing. So we're going to use Gemini 3 Pro, and then we're going to generate the page. There you go. And we have the slides. It's gorgeous. It's beautiful. It's working. Uh, every slide has sort of like the focus on each of the techniques and the prompts. It's doing its best to replicate what the prompt is about, which is great because it reads the prompt, it creates the prompt, and then use it to sort of demo the things that the prompt is about. And this is really cool. Of course, it's not perfect, so you might want to go to design mode, and then for each of them, you might want to reprompt for each of them. And I usually do this when the AI makes mistakes, because the more that you ask AI to do things, the less the quality of each of those things will be. And this happens a lot. And that's why, you should never give up on the first try. All right, so let's do something special. We're going to take this a little bit further. And I want to do something that I haven't shared before. This is a really cool technique that I'm working on, which is that I want the exact same style as another template. And I'm trying to perfect this one. So for example, let's say I look at this layout and I really, really like that style, but I don't necessarily want to reference the template because then it also holds all the information that maybe I don't want to apply to. So for example, the content, the buttons, all that stuff. I just want the styles. I just want to apply exactly this style to an existing template. Wouldn't that be awesome? And that's kind of like what I'm working on right now. So what we're going to do here is we're going to copy the code, and we are going to go to Gemini AI Studio, and specifically we're going to go to the Gemini 3 chat. So we're going to try Gemini 3 here. You need to set up your API key, and then I'm going to paste this, and then this is the code, right? This is the HTML, which is why I love so much to use HTML, because I don't need to copy the code for like, 50 files, or even 10 files is too much work. So I'm going to use this prompt right here, and I'm going to read it to you. So give me the JSON format of the styles of this design. So think design system, right? And I want the fonts, the colors, the spacing, the shadows, the animation, the layout, the main button styles, the animation script, the animation keyframe, instruction, adaptive layout, icon, and so on. So I'm going to run this. And then boom, look at that. We have the full JSON blueprint of that design. How cool is that? I'm going to copy this to clipboard, and I'm going to go back to my design here, and I'm going to say adapt to this style. So if you read the JSON format, essentially it has all of this sort of like design system tokens, if you will, right? Like it has the fonts, the coloring, the palette in this case, and the layout, and so on, the spacing, transition, animation, assets, and so on. So let's see how well it's going to do. And there you go. So I tried twice because the first time it did not capture the light mode. And so, I'm still perfecting this technique, but it's really awesome. You can see the difference between the styles. So this one was the first one, kind of a little bit more generic, especially with the sort of, purple blur here, which, we all know it's very AI, it smells like it. And then this one, it adapts a little bit, but it used orange instead. And, it's a little bit better. And then this one, I believe that it's even better. By the way, it also captured, the button, which is really cool. So this button here that I wanted, and in light mode, it looks even better. So again, a lot of trials and errors, but the more that you try, the more that your design becomes unique. And so that's what we have right here. So this is really cool. Even capture the clip animation. And of course, we have the marquee animation, the card animation, and so on. So now I can sort of go to design mode and quickly just change a few things. So for example, you can, if AI doesn't do everything that you want, maybe you can just change the font, to be a little bit more futuristic. So Space Grotesque is a very good one. And then we have, the font weight. So I'm not going to spend a ton of time here, but I definitely want the background. So I'm just going to go to the background for the body. And then I'm going to set to something a little bit more contrasty. So for example, this here is a little bit better. It gives a little bit more contrast. And these are tailwind colors, by the way. So this is kind of cool. And then I'm just going to select this container here. And we have a few beautiful shadows that you can use. So for example, I can use beautiful 2XL. And also we have the angle shadow, which is very, very popular on social media. And so you can go with large, or you can go with extra large, or super strong, whatever you fancy and whatever works with your background, keeping in mind that the darker the background, the more you can get away with stronger shadows. So for example, here it's quite strong. And, I'm going to go with a little bit less strong just because the background is light. So this works pretty well. And then I'm also going to change the body text to be so Space Grotesque and Space Grotesque. So both of them. So we have a bit more futuristic and then a little bit tighter. All right, so let's go and let's iterate on this. I'm going to go to the prompt builder because it's very easy to get some of these styles that I want. So for example, I want this icon set, the solar duotone bold. I want also this for the logos, SVG logos it's called. And I want the animation in sequence. And this is going to animate. Right now, it's not really animated. And then there's another one that I've been experimenting, which is add vertical lines container size. So I like this. It gives a bit more futuristic style. And there we go. This is really cool. I'm just going to show you the animation here. You can see we have the beautiful animation. So the other thing that is kind of like not happening is that we don't have animation on scroll, which is kind of what I want. But we have the beautiful, super subtle lines, which I absolutely love because it adds that sort of like extra depth to your design. And that is so, so cool. It adds like this small rounded outline with very subtle drop shadow. The only thing that I forgot to do is just to apply the same drop shadow everywhere. And I forgot to mention that. So I'm going to redo it again. And I'm going to say something like apply the same drop shadows as the first card. Now, for the animation, this is where I'm going to bring the big guns because, as much as I love prompting, there's a ton of stuff that it's going to miss, which is why we're going to start using references. So for example, animation on scroll, usually it doesn't work so well with just prompting. So I'm going to do animate, and then I'm going to reference the code snippet. And specifically, we're going to use animation on scroll and animation keyframe. All right, so it did exactly what I asked it. So for example, it animates. It's applying the drop shadow to every card now. And when I scroll, it starts the animation. So that makes for a more engaging slide. Now, one thing I'm noticing here, and this is where you will probably going to be struggling as you reference, whether an image, whether a reference code, component, etc. Unless you specify, it might change the content. So in this case, I just realized that it did change the content. The content was supposed to be about Gemini 3 prompts, but when I added the style, which is something that I wanted to avoid, it changed into sort of like the theme of the style. But it kept some stuff. So for example, it is still about, okay, this is funny. It is about CSS techniques now, which again, it's actually pretty cool because I can use this. I can actually use this for Instagram. All right, so this is why prompting is really important to be specific, because when you start changing stuff like content, for example, it might not keep everything. So what I'm gonna do is bring back this, and I'm gonna put back my original prompt for the Instagram slides, and I'm gonna say keep everything, right? Keep everything. You can also say something like important. And then finally, we're going to put the content of the tweet. And we're back. So now you can see that I'm using this very specific prompt. Keep all the style, shadows, layout, animations. Only take the content from a previous iteration. So for example, I can copy this, which is the HTML code, and then I put that code, and I'm just gonna take the content from that specific code. So what is left at this point is images, which I think AI has trouble with, so we might as well take the human aspect here. So we want to use your talent and your taste on this. So for example, I'm gonna click on the container, and I'm gonna go to the images. And this is where I'm just gonna vibe, right? Like I wanna go with whatever image that might work here. All right, so let's say we have this image that we can work with. Now, one thing you can do is select a blending mode. So for example, I'm gonna select the text, and I'm gonna use So I have a few options here. One is I can quickly just change the color of the text for each one. So for example here, and then maybe I want something light or dark, whatever works. You want to make sure that the text is always readable. The other thing I can do is to use the new Nano Banana Pro, which is really cool. This is a new feature in Aura. And here you can go to generate image, and you can sort of describe. Now, what is interesting about Nano Banana Pro is that the resolution is 2x, and you can go up to 4K, but not in this case. You have to do upscale after. But I might add that option later. It's just a bit more costly. But 2K is fine, right? For what we're trying to do here, 2K is amazing. It's a very, very high resolution, by the way. And you can also change the sort of format, the aspect ratio. So let's say you like the image, you want to make it into a landscape for your hero. That's possible now. And Nano Banana is going to try to do as best as it can. So in this case, we want the 3:4 aspect ratio, which is very popular on Instagram. And then we want to describe something. For example, make the bottom half use progressive blur, and work as a light background with a dark text possible on top. So we're gonna try this. And there we go. So this is pretty awesome. I was able to modify it, and I'm gonna apply it. And then boom. So the reason why I'm doing this is so that my text here can be a lot more readable. And in this case, because it has a sort of light blur at the bottom, now I can set the text to be dark, so to contrast and to be much more readable. And likewise for the icons, I can just click on the icons, and we support a bunch of icons and logos and stuff like that. In this case, for example, we can use something like a wand or a star, and it works quite well. The text color, quite easy to change to light mode. And these are using Tailwind colors. So let's do the same for the last one. I can definitely do all of them. So make sure that you remove the gradient if you want an image. And yeah, like some images will work a little bit better. You're gonna have to, vibe it. This is where it really counts to use your taste as someone who has a lot of experience or who has used products for many, many years. But I do want to offer some advice. So for example, for backgrounds, especially for web design, motion works quite well. So you're gonna search for motion, and something like this can work really, really well with text on top of it, with blur, with, with motion blur and all that stuff. You can also have landscape, which usually is more minimal. So those also works quite well. And you can also use the color. So for example, I'm going to select color, and I'm going to go with a more light, and then you can sort of like change the size of the text to make it more readable. And then now we're kind of ready to test this. So you want to go to the iPad mode. You can definitely change the canvas to be light or dark, whether you prefer, and then you can customize the canvas. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to look at here, and from here I can just say something like, I want full screen. So let's do that. So here we want to do a few things. One, we want to make the cards full screen in mobile. The second one is we want to remove the rounded corners, because in Instagram you don't want, like if you're taking a screenshot, you don't want to show the rounded corners. And then remove the card border, so we don't need the border. And we want a nav bar. It looks a little bit better for a website. So I'm going to add some navigation up, down, and the dots in the middle. So I'm going to press enter. And there we go. We have the full screen, beautiful layout on mobile. And what is cool about this is that this totally works on a normal website, right? Yes, I'm doing for Instagram slide, but you can totally do this for a portfolio, for a company website. It's really, really usable. So at this point, I'm just gonna fix the small issues for the navigation, and at the same time, I think it's good to know how to fix those things and what works best. So for example, if you want to have a specific animation and it's not working well, like this guy here, I'm just gonna copy this prompt here, which is really cool, and applying what I'm teaching, which is what I'm doing right now, and I'm gonna select this. Just make sure that sometimes some of the buttons, they have like extra containers. So we're gonna use the family of elements to sort of like gauge what are the children elements, what is the parent element, and it has a highlight, which is very helpful. And then from here, I'm gonna go to prompt, and I'm gonna say, I'm gonna put the prompt and apply. All right, there you go. So on hover, it gives me this beautiful, beam animation. Sometimes you might need to be a bit more specific, and sometimes you might need to reference a component. So for example, one of the buttons, let's say you select this, and you're gonna go to prompt, and then you're gonna reference a component. But make sure that when you do reference something, whether a design or a template, you do mention to keep the original design. And you just want the technique, you just want the color or the shadow or whatever, like be specific as much as possible. I think this is one of the weaknesses of Gemini 3, is that it is a little bit too creative for its own good, but at the same time, honestly, I have a ton of happy accidents, And I think that's amazing. So all of these prompts, I'm going to refine this, and they're going to be available in the prompt builder. And now let's get into the landing page. So a pro tip when it comes to creating designs with Gemini, you need a ton of context. I talk many times about collecting inspiration, whether using my mind, or in my case, I like it quick and dirty, which is I'm using photos. And you can see I have all of my designs organized. In this case, I have my design, and these are the ones and the templates that are available on Aura. And I can just copy this and bring this to Aura. But you can see it's organized by landing page, hero, testimonials, feature, FAQ, all the things that I need to compose a beautiful website. So here, I'm going to paste the design, and notice the little animation that I added yesterday. And this is kind of cool. One thing that I changed is that, I want to make people understand that, yeah, Aura is faster because we're just generating HTML. So it's just 30 seconds. And if you want to watch the video, I think the video works well. So I'm going to insert, paste the image. So copy and paste. And then I'm going to go to prompt builder because, instead of typing, and what I'm going to do here, because it's a landing page in this case, the design is a landing page, it has all the sections. I'm going to say create, the landing page. So you might want to sort of like customize this, and then you want to select the icons that you want. So in this case, I want the solar icon, and there's a number of icons that are available on open source. So you might want to reference them. And you might want to also apply the animation, but my favorite way of applying animation is to use the code snippet. It's a lot more accurate. So I'm gonna add all of this stuff, and here, and I don't need to reference the style, so I'm gonna remove this because I have an image. And finally, I'm gonna add the animation. So animate, and then add code snippet, and again, I can use animation on scroll and animation keyframe. And you can also add border gradient if you want. So let's hope for the best. And then boom, this is all one shot. And you can see we have the animation. It's beautiful. It's respecting the layout, which is this. It's not perfect. It depends on a number of variables, but it does a really good job. You can see it has the layout, it has this section here that I want, and it has, some of the interactions that I want, and it looks really, really good. For a first shot, this is amazing. Obviously, you can easily change the font pairing. So for example, you want a space grotesque, or you want manrope, you want tighter, and it's already, more unique. So don't skip this part. It's just a few clicks. You get to learn the, how to say things, how to prompt things. And, you can change all of these logos. We support a number of these collections. We're going to support more of these icons. And obviously you want to change the images, each avatar. You might want to go here, and then you want to go to image, and you want to search for portrait or headshot, whatever works for your design. And one thing I love is also Unicorn Studio. So, I'm gonna go to assets, and this is where I have a bunch of these beautiful backgrounds. So the one that I use is actually this one, which is really awesome. And oftentimes when you use an animation like this one, it might be a little bit overpowering depending on the colors and so on. You can set it to a saturation 0, and you can set it to less brightness. So now it's a little bit less overpowering. And then we want to set the buttons to be different. So this is quite easy. What I can do here is select the buttons, and I'm going to go to prompt, and I'm going to say change the main button to, and then I'm going to go to component, and I'm going to search for button, this one. And I also want the secondary button. So another thing you can do, so for example, this could be a good secondary button. And so this is the main button. I just want to specify secondary button for the second one. And that's it. This is looking great. One more thing that I love to do is to change the border gradient, because it adds that little, a uniqueness to your design. And everything that is a human touch, I think you should totally spend the time on it. AI should be there to just create the blueprint, create the basic things, I mean, it's not even basic. It's just like, it takes you to that 90%. And even that, if that 90% is ahead of the curve, that's amazing. And then you add that extra 10%, then you're like 200% or 300% ahead of the curve, which is even more amazing. You can never do too much, right? You should never think that, oh, I'm doing too much. No, because like AI gives you so much power right now. It gives you like a superpower. It's up to you to do the rest. So here, I'm applying a border gradient. I can, change the opacity of the border gradient. I can change like a triple color border gradient. It's really, really fun, and definitely don't skip this part. Sometimes AI is like, not exactly getting the size that I want. So you can totally change and go into the Tailwind code. You can go into the coding as well. So for example, I can go to code. I can check the container of it. I'm gonna set the height to 40x8 pixel. I'm using Tailwind code, by the way. And if you don't know code, that's totally fine. Don't worry about it. Just prompt everything. Like I want the first button to be a little bit taller than the second button. If you do know code, and if you've gone through this before, you're saving yourself a lot of money. You don't have to prompt. You yourself are gaining the skills, you're gaining the knowledge, and you can do it yourself. So, all right, so I even changed the color of the button using one of our components, and I ask it to keep the border beam, which is kind of cool. Like you can really remix and redo everything, which again, I love doing that. So now we're gonna get into like all of the prompts that we discussed before, and I'm gonna select all of this stuff, and I'm gonna go to prompt. Of course, I can also do it from the the whole layout here. That also works. So it's up to you. It's definitely more consistent. If you want to make sure that everything is kept there, just select the element and prompt there. It's you can control things a little bit better, and it's not going to try to be too creative. All right, I'm going to try this flashlight animation here, and it's very cool. I'm going to paste that. Apply also to the border gradient. So, all right, so we have a beautiful flashlight animation applied to our card. I even applied it to the other cards as well. And so, yeah, you can absolutely apply this beautiful effect to your website. Let me do another one. Animate the cards to rotate, but in this case, I'm going to be specific. The white card. 2, and for the cards, to rotate between 3 cards, add previous and next. All right, so again, it depends on sort of your layout. I think this was a bit difficult, but it still managed to do it. For example, this auto plays to the next one, and you can click left and right. So depending on your layout, you might have different results. I think these are awesome prompts that you should be playing with. And the flashlight, the text animation, so the clip animation for the text, the beam animation, the carousel marquee animation using alpha mask, the flashlight again, and also the sort of like switching between cards. You can also mention about this kind of animation. I'm going to add all of them to the prompt builder, and I'm going to make it super easy for you to reference when you're going to be building your own site or your own Instagram slides. I'm also going to share the remix for the background so that you can use it for your own website. Now, it is important to understand that if you use the Unicorn Studio asset as is, then it's free. And you can make it part of your website, it's fine. But if you want to customize it using Unicorn Studio, you need, especially without the watermark, you need a pro account. And also some of the Unicorn Studio assets that we have on Aura is, for our pro users. We put a ton of work into these templates, these components, these backgrounds. And of course, we want to make this sustainable. But if you want to customize it fully, again, I'm making this remixable and this part is free. However, you do need a pro account on Unicorn Studio to be able to customize it. And so, for example, once you remix it, you're going to have access to the editor, which is so awesome. So if you want like a different animation, for example, one thing that I recommend that anyone should always do is just like play with the show and hide to see what is affecting what. Now, in this case, what you want to look at is the beam animation, because the beam animation is super customizable. You're going to go to the type and then you're going to try different animations. So for example, the star, square, triangle, and so on and so forth. One thing that I love, for example, is this one, Nova, and you can certainly like customize the thickness of it. So if you want to make it less, in your face, then you can make the thickness to be lesser. The same with the scale and the color and the blend mode. The same with the texture. So you can play with the texture. You can adjust the width and and height and saturation, exposure, all kinds of stuff that will really make it elevate your own landing page. And it's super fun. You can customize it. I'm gonna share the link. You can just play with it. It's super friendly as well. Anyone without any coding experience, just click hide, show, see what works. So for example, the God rays is the little light rays, and we have the chromatic aberration. You can add more to the filter. You can add like blur. You can add like a mouse effect. You can add like a light a light that follows the mouse. You can add like aurora, a lot of things. And you can also click on pause or play, because some of the backgrounds, they don't need to be animated, and some of them maybe you want to. And another thing that I love is the tracking of the mouse. So for example, if you set the tracking of the mouse here, you can see that when I move my mouse, the animation of the shader actually follows. So this is super, super cool as well. And you're gonna have just a ton of fun. So again, Unicorn Studio is free, but if you want to publish it, customizing it, I think is free. But if you want to customize, publish it without the logo and all that stuff, obviously you want that, then you will need a pro account. So that's it. Today we learned how to create a beautiful landing page with animations, all of these animation techniques, to create a landing page like this one, using the beam, using the clip animation, flashlight. You can go crazy with all of these prompts, with all of these templates, all of these references. And of course, we also learn how to create an Instagram slides using a prompt and then customize it, change the image, change all of this. And then you can imagine you can just take a screenshot, right? Or take a screen recording of the animation if you have animation. Or you can publish this as a portfolio website, a landing page, whatever it is. I think it works really, really well. And then post that, and then watch your numbers grow, right? Because at the end of the day, that's why we're creating landing pages. That's why we're creating Instagram slides, because we want to create beautiful material that is ahead of the curve, that is going to bring you new followers, new customers to your business. Here, the same way, this is another template. They're available on Aura, so you can have a ton of fun with them. So I hope you enjoyed this video. And if you're not subscribed yet, you should totally subscribe because I'm going to have a ton more of this type of content. I'm someone who's super curious. I explore all of these things, the prompting. This is the new era. This is the golden era with Gemini 3, and it's just going to get better from here. So please consider subscribing, give it a try on Aura, and I'll see you in the next video.